All righty, welcome into One Giant Step. It's a divisional round, baby. It's Sean Morris. It's Paul DeTito. That's right. We're going down to Philly, both in this podcast and on Saturday night. Paul. Hello. You got to be popping around East Rutherford with your head held high. This is great, baby. Here we are, 48 hours away, it seems like, from the time taping this, from the Giants kicking off in Philly.
Sean, the only danger right now is going down the turnpike at 95 miles an hour, blasting Springsteen's Born to Run, because the energy and the enthusiasm is off the charts.
Yeah. And in a couple minutes, we're going to head down and talk to our basically Go Birds podcast people. You're going to hear a lot of trash talk and all of that. And you're going to get really fired up, Giants fans, because you're going to hear how little the Eagles take the
Oh,
Giants seriously. Like,
they're flapping their gums more than their wings, Sean.
basically, just there's no shot. So we're going to wrap the podcast with obviously our picks and all that. So I just want to give us a brief Giant conversation and add in before we go there. Paul, the Giants, and look, you've been around the team. I'm judging based on a lot of videos I've seen. They seem real loose this week. I get the vibe they are real loose this week. Dance around at practice. The kind of energy that you see around a team that says, okay, yeah, keep picking against us. I just love the vibe and attitude I'm getting from the Giants. There's not a sense of tightness in the world.
Extremely confident, Sean. And I think one of the reasons for it, and think about this for just a moment. Every time the Giants faced an opponent in a rematch, whether it was the Eagles, the Commanders, or the Cowboys, the Giants fared much better with their play than they did in the first matchup. Same
Right.
thing happened with Minnesota, right?
Yeah,
Think
absolutely.
about that. That's 4 different times now. They have faced an opponent in the rematch and played so much better in the second game. Now, they didn't win all those second games. Obviously, they lost to Philly and they lost to Dallas, but they gave those teams something to think about.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think these players have a tremendous amount of confidence in not only their ability to make adjustments on the rebound, but also in the coaching staff. And it goes back to something we've been saying all year, Sean. This coaching staff will not take a backseat to anybody.
No, they will not. They will not at all. And Paul, one theory that I really have to debunk, because you and I both talked, I guess, last week, 2 weeks ago, after the Giant Eagle game, the second time around. It feels like a lot of people are hammering this, like, play a team 3 times in a year. It's hard to do thing. That's the only thing I don't like coming out of, like, the Giant talk angle. Number one, the Giants did do it in the year 2000. They were able to beat the Eagles 3 times. Number two, can we stop counting the second game from a Giant perspective? The only thing you can take away from a Giant perspective is that the Eagles did play all their starters, and the Giants' backups held up. But it wasn't as if the Giants gave it their all like we said they shouldn't. By the way, we said they shouldn't for this exact reason. Don't show the Eagles all your cards with your full team. So the Eagles have not seen the Giants in reality 2 times yet this year. They saw the
That's
Giants
correct.
in a game where, as we saw, Julian Love is basically trying to play 15 spots at once in the secondary. The team had not settled down really. They were still reeling off the loss with Dory Jackson and Xavier McKinney. Isaiah Hodgins had only just scored his first touchdown a week earlier. They had not come into their own. Bellinger was still a little banged up coming back off that bye. This is a completely different New York Giant team than the Philadelphia Eagles saw. So while you may want to jump out, look at that 48 to whatever score, I caution everybody. This is going to be the real matchup between who these 2 teams really are. In fact, the only reason it won't be is because it's the Eagles on the other side who are really banged up, and who knows what to see with Hurts and Lane Johnson.
Yeah, Sean, in effect, and I don't mean literally, but figuratively, those were 2 preseason games because this is the real game. This is
Yeah.
the one that counts. This is the one where everybody's in the lineup for both sides, no matter how hurt they may be. We know Lane Johnson's hurting. We know that Jalen Hurts is hurting. We know that Leonard Williams is dealing with a sore neck. We know Azeez Ojulari is dealing with a sore quad. It doesn't matter because everybody is going to use everything they've got and put it all on the line, hurt or not hurt. So this is the real game. And I would say this. The Eagles, despite the fact that they certainly may have pulled back some in terms of their overall playbook in that last game against the Giants, the fact that they played the starters for 4 quarters allowed the Giants reserves to test them and to learn stuff about them that the starters may be able to use this time around. So I don't think that was necessarily a worthless exercise on behalf of Big Blue.
I agree. I agree. And we're going to give, I guess, our game picks, ultimate, what we think are the real big matchups here to close the pod. But Paul, I think if you are a Giant fan that hates Philadelphia, and I just want to put you, Paul, you're a few years older than me, okay? I am 35, turned 36. There was a time not that long ago when I was growing up where all the Giants did was beat the Eagles. They beat the Andy Reid Eagles a ton. And then after 2000, and then really after the 2002 Saturday game to close the year where the Giants won, we have seen nothing but heartbreak. Sure, you had Osi Umenyiora sacking off of Winston Justice. Was it Winston Justice? Was that his name? I already forgot the tackle's name.
Yeah,
Remember that night? You
yeah.
had that night. You had the Plexico comeback 2006. You had those couple moments. You had Victor Cruz that first week in 2011. But Paul, all I have known in my adult life, Vince Young to Steve Smith, Deshaun Jackson, even before that, Brian Westbrook returning big punts, Evan Ingram dropping passes in our Thursday night game, Daniel Jones tripping and falling down. I have had my face rubbed in the dirt by Eagle fans. I've seen this team not win there since Matt Barkley played quarterback in a game a decade ago. I want this more than I wanted either of my children to be born, Paul. That's how bad I want this. And if you
Let me
were a
put
Giant,
it. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, if you were a Giant fan that feels that way, Paul, and you know this, I'm going to let you respond to this in a second. What you were about to hear with this Eagle Trash Go Birds podcast, James and Elliot, is going to infuriate you as a Giant fan and make you want to run through a wall ahead of Saturday.
I truly thought they were going to break out the music, but thank God we didn't hear that. Look, what you're referring to is that since Super Bowl 42, the Giants have dropped 24 of 31 meetings against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's what you're referring to. This
Yes.
has not even been a rivalry. It has been a one-sided stumping. That's what the Eagles have done to the Giants. And by the way, they've beaten them in all kinds of mysterious ways, too,
Yeah.
including last-second field goals
Oh.
from the other side of the bridge in Camden. I mean, that's
Kicking
how
it from the parking
ridiculous
lot.
it's been.
Oh.
Okay? Now, here's what I do want to remind you of two things. Number one, when the Giants ended the 16 years of lousy football in 81, they defeated the Philadelphia Eagles in the wild card game. Remember the Wally Henry game?
Yes. Well, I don't, but
Okay.
I've seen the tapes, have been told the stories right. Exactly.
Okay. Lawrence Taylor was a gunner, scared the living bejesus out of Wally Henry, forced him to muff. He wound up coughing up the ball twice on kick returns at the old Veterans Stadium. And that 1981 playoff victory by the Giants, Rob Carpenter just showing all the blood and guts that New York is all about. That game helped turn around the scene for the Giants and kind of started setting them on their way under Ray Perkins until Bill Parcells took over a couple of years later. So maybe, just maybe, this playoff game is the kind of thing that's going to turn it around and send Dable and Shane off into several years of playoff contending. The other thing I want to add
Paul.
is
Yeah,
that
Paul.
I want to tell you back in 1978, the Miracle of Meadowlands, the Herman Edwards fumble, okay? That is what totally turned up the hatred between the Giants and Eagles fans to a broiler pitch, okay? A broiler pitch. Pizarchik fumbles the Zonka handoff. Herm Edwards takes it in. Up until that point, it wasn't quite as awful. In fact, from 1962 to 1974, the Giants and Eagles played an annual preseason game at Princeton's Palmer Stadium for charity and raised money for the JCs, which gave funds to community organizations. These organizations were kumbaya. And in 74, they finally decided this can't work anymore because it's starting to get a little hot. The rivalry's starting to get a little too much. We're seeing a little too much chippiness on the field in this game. Remember, both of these teams were put into the same division after the 1970 merger between the AFL and the NFL. So now we're a few years in, and the Giants had a contract with Palmer Stadium in 1975. They finished off the deal by playing the Pittsburgh Steelers instead of the Philadelphia Eagles. And they have never played the Eagles in a preseason game since because the rivalry continued to grow and grow and grow to right now where you got to be almost afraid to go into their stadium.
Paul, I have to be honest with you, man. There was a lot of points on Monday and Tuesday this week where I relished in the Viking win, and I went into that house money mode. I no longer feel that way after that conversation. There is no house money. I despise this team. I despise this organization. And you know what? This isn't a matter of just, oh, anything can happen any given Sunday. I mean, sure, there's an element of that. The Giants are a good football team.
The Giants belong, Sean.
They
The Giants
belong
belong.
here. They belong here. And you could pump your chest about how many games you won in blowout fashion in October, November, into the early December. What matters is how teams are playing now. We've seen it time and time again, and we've seen it here. 15-1 Packers 2011, the one-seeded Cowboys 2007. And I hate that we have to keep coming back to those years, but we've seen it with our own eyes. Just because you have these great regular seasons, what have you done for me lately? And what? We put pixie dust on Jalen Hurts' shoulder now, and that's it? He's just going to go out and be the same old Jalen Hurts? And even if he is, what's his chemistry going to be like? This is a different Giants secondary. It's a more confident Giants secondary. Paul, wouldn't shock me to we see more Cordell Flott, who played A.J. Brown twice in these spots. I kind of like the matchups, Paul. And with that, I'm going to give it to you. You give me what you think, game picks, all of that fantasy, and the reality of what this comes down to for the New York Giants. I know you gave it a little bit in that interview there about slowing it down, but take it away, Paul. What do you got in this game?
The Giants have to run the ball at least 35 times for a minimum of 150 yards. I don't care how much Barkley gets. I don't care how much Jones gets. But between the two of them, they got to put together those kinds of numbers to have a chance to win this game. I think they can do it. I'm not saying they will, but I think that they can. I also believe on the other side of the ball, they've got to bang around Jalen Hurts as often, as hard, and as early as possible in this game. And I'm going to tell you, Sean, don't be afraid to go after Hurts and even allow him to go after a secondary and hit a couple of 15-yard passes. Because if you can get some clean hits on him early, you can test out that shoulder.
Good
Can
point.
send him a message. The other day, when he was told they were playing the Giants for the third time this season, his quote was, "This is going to be fun." No, 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 no. It's not going to be fun. This is going to hurt. You need to make sure that that quarterback doesn't have fun. You need to make sure that he feels the wrath of the Giants pass rush early and often, so that as the game wears on, it's going to be more difficult for him to do what he wants to do. And that's really, in my mind, those are the two things offensively and defensively the Giants have to get done to give themselves a chance to pull this one off.
So what do you got? What's your score prediction here, Paul?
Well, up until the last 24 hours or so, I had 26-23 Eagles because I thought that they had too many elite players and that because of the number of guys that they have who could make a big play, they would squeak it out. I have now changed my mind. I think the Giants are going to eke their way to a victory 23-20.
I love it, Paul. You got a fantasy play for the Giants, or is it just going to be riding the tails of Barkley?
I think it's going to be Daniel Jones who's going to have a game not quite like he did in Minnesota, but he's going to have to run it for 70 yards or so, I do believe. You know, he's going to have to split the workload on the ground with Barkley, but he's also going to hit some very key passes. In fact, my X factor is Daniel Bellinger.
Okay.
Because against a team that has that kind of pass rush, one of the quarterback's best friends is that tight end who can run shorter, quicker routes and get open right behind the pass rush. And I think he could be an X factor in this game.
Okay, I like it. Paul, I'm kind of with you, man. I spent the early part of the week going, as much as I want to wave the pom-poms, I kind of think the Giants are going to put up a fight and we're going to have our hearts broken again. Not anymore. Not anymore. I've changed. I've listened to the way Eagle fans, and those weren't the only two I've heard, talk about this game. And you're right about Jalen Hurts' tone. We might think we live in this New York bubble where the Giants are being this popular pick and everybody's waxing Daniel Jones. People still don't believe. And a year ago, we were living in a world where people didn't believe even in Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts. Now we're just supposed to assume off of basically not playing for a month and a bad shoulder that he's still this great player. He had a nice season, good MVP season. Let's calm down a little bit. Do you remember the feeling on draft night when the Eagles traded up with Devontae Smith? Make him feel some pain in this game too. That was a guy that could have been a Giant. Make him feel some pain in this game too. Paul, we have been sick and tired of burned on these long field goals and everything. You know what? I'm going 29-27 Giants, and they're going to be trailing late. And this time, It's Graham Gano from about 55 or beyond that makes the Eagles feel a piece of what we've felt like for years. And we are going to be hugging and dancing and crying, knowing that we're the ones that have hit the long walk-off field goal with our kicker who was snubbed on an all-pro team, and have Jake Elliott basically kiss our ass because Graham Gano is sending the Giants to an NFC championship game. And as far as fantasy goes, a common theme amongst the Giants all year, a big thing that's let them down, a big thing that let them down a week ago, a big thing that let them down in pass with the Eagles. Darius Slayton dropped passes, not today. Darius Slayton on a game where the Giants have just abused the Eagles on the run. Suddenly that secondary weakens a little bit, and you get a big play touchdown from Darius Slayton because the Eagles overly commit to the run in the second half of this game, and it's Slayton this time catching the football and a little redemption, and he goes over 100 yards receiving. And flap your wings, Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to the offseason. Let's go, Paul. It changes today or Saturday. It changes now. The Dable era of Giants football. No longer do we bend down and we let the Eagles kiss our ass and be our daddy. Not anymore. It changes now. Giants 27, Giants 29, Eagles 27. Bring on the Cowboys, too. I want them next round. I want a piece of them. And we make this a screw the Eagles, screw the Cowboys, the best magic carpet ride of all time. Let's go Giants, Paul.
Sean, I only hope that your family has some riot gear available after the game is finally over, because they're going to need protection from you.
I'm pumped up, baby. I'm pumped up. Paul, where can we get you the rest of the week on Twitter and the trip to Philly here?
At Giants WFAN.
You could get me at Mraz CBS. Listen, when small chance they lose, you will get our podcast available late Sunday. We will be with you Sunday, of course, because it's a Saturday night game. Giant fans, this is it. We haven't won there in a decade. We are due. We are due. You heard the middle part of this podcast. They don't believe in us. And when the Giants aren't believed in as an organization, it usually works out pretty well for us. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the win. Eat cheesesteaks as much as you want on Sunday, smiling, knowing we even own that food too. Take care, everyone. And thank you to Adam, our producer. And thank you to everybody for taking one giant step with us.